Are we going? Okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so we're back live here. We're going to wait for a bunch more people to come in. If people are going to be heading on in, let's do that. Yeah, I got some coffee up here too. So again, this is for office hours. Let's see what's my audio like. Yeah, it's working. Okay. Yeah. So we'll get started here in just a little bit. I think I have a couple things I do want to mention. Yeah, in terms of some ideas for you all. Switch views over here so you can see what's going on. So, yeah, we're live. So if you have any questions, first of all, bring them on in. I don't have anything urgent in the inbox right now, but I am going to check a couple more places here in a web browser. Hold on. And let's find out if anybody has some info they want to share over the course of the next hour and get some assistance and so on. We'll do that, of course. That's the number one priority here, is to help you guys out. So if you have any thoughts or concerns, or you have some work that's due tonight, again, a group project information is due tonight, that first group project assignment, I'll check to see if, or who, is still out there that needs to get some work done. But if you do have that, definitely send that to me. Okay, get that in. If you're stuck on something, let me know and I can help you out over the next hour or so. Again, we'll try to wrap this up around 8 p.m. If we go a little short, it's likely just because we are probably kind of at the end of the road in terms of stuff we need to focus on. Let's see if we have anything. I do have a couple things I do want to talk about, like we did last week. We'll kind of continue. I'm going to kind of monologue for a little while, and if people have some assistance they need, then I will definitely share that. But if you are logged in, if you do jump in and you're here, go ahead and say hi, say something. Let me know you're here. And after that, we will, again, we'll continue on with any assistance you need. Number one, we'll talk a little bit today about overlapping geometry in AutoCAD. I want to show some demonstrations about that and how to avoid it and how to kind of clean up some of your line work, which is going to make your life in AutoCAD a little easier and a little nicer. And then also in Revit, I've got a couple of things I want to talk about too, mainly for people working in their group projects as well. I've got an idea about give you some examples maybe of what to do with that commercial space. So we'll kind of take that building apart a little bit from the inside out, and I'll show you kind of what I mean coming up a little later on as well. So, obviously this is for live use. Now, if you are watching this recorded, it's good. You still can, obviously, and contribute that way. A little bit later on, we'll get into some questions that have come through in the class as well. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do, let's hop over to AutoCAD. Hold on, I'll be right back. Just a second. Okay, we're gonna, first of all, sorry about that. We're gonna hop into AutoCAD first. I want to show you something. And this is about overlapping geometry. It's not something that the author in the textbook talks about at all. I wonder why. Maybe this was just something that they missed. But it was something that was definitely grilled into my head when I was a student in this class a few years ago. So I want to share a couple of ideas with you. I'm going to start a new file, and we'll just use the normal ACAD template like we always do. We will do our main house cleaning responsibilities by turning off the view cube. I turn off the grid, and then I set my units. So I'll do that here. I'll set that to architectural from decimal, okay? And when we're done, what I want to do is draw a few basic objects here. And I'm going to show you the concept of overlapping geometry and why it's not such a good idea. And I've seen this in some of the architectural objects assignments. Some of you have been sending me. I haven't really commented on it too much, but I wanted to take a few minutes here to talk about it. So let's go ahead with a rectangle tool first. I'm just going to draw the rectangle of some random size right now. And I will draw a line and make sure that my object snaps are turned on. And let's draw that line all the way across the top of the rectangle. And I'm going to just kind of recenter the view here so you can see this. Now, notice that there's really not a lot of there's almost no way to differentiate whether there's a line here or that's just a rectangle. Everything looks the same. Sometimes you will see some extra line intensity if there are multiple lines overlapping each other. You'll see a visual difference. It will look more bold or more electrified, if you will, okay? Right now it's very hard to see, and for those of you watching the stream, it's probably impossible to see that there's an extra line over the top. But generally how this works is the latest thing you did, that line we created over the top of the rectangle is going to be, just a little bit above in the order of sequences. So if I select up here, I'm going to be selecting the line, not the rectangle. I would select the rectangle over somewhere else where there's no line over the top of it. Okay, so if I am then in the mode of trying to eliminate overlapping geometry, I need to get that line out of there. I'll show you maybe if I can pull this over a little bit so you can see a little bit of a difference. I don't know if it's easy to see that. It's probably easier to see zoomed out a little bit than it is zoomed in. That line is now in this space right here. So if I hover the cursor, you can kind of see how it's becoming more intensified or bolded as I hover over that line. So this practice right here, or this result of your drafting, it's not a good idea. You want to get that out of there. You don't want to have an extra line laying on the top of another line. It's not helping you, and there's a couple of reasons for it. First is, if you have different layers that these lines are drawn on, and the geometry is drawn on, and let's say that rectangle is on a lighter line weight, and that line we drew is a heavier line weight, it's going to block out the visibility of that rectangle, the lightness, if you will, of the rectangle. So, not a good practice, right? We need to get rid of it. So I would normally just select the line and delete it. Of course, all you need to do is delete the thing, it's gone, and that has taken care of the problem. But in some cases, let's bring that line back. In some cases, that's not quite as simple. Maybe the line, you have another one here, and I have drawn another line from this corner over to that other endpoint. So I've got now a rectangle and I've got two lines here, and it's again probably pretty hard to tell if there's any overlapping geometry because AutoCAD isn't really showing it to you very boldly. There's a little bit of intensity going on here. You can see some of this line work. In my eyes, I can see some breakpoint right about where my cursor vertical line is right there. But again, overlapping geometry is bad drafting practice because it's concealing geometry below it. That's probably more important. It's the geometry you put in there in the first place, right? So, not a good idea. Okay, so how do we get rid of these things? Well, okay, let's take these two lines that we've drawn and we'll move them out of the way so I can kind of show you what I'm going to do here. There's a quick trick to this if you wanted to actually turn both of these lines into one. So there's no longer any crossing over of these lines. Simple way to do this is to select both lines and then type in the word join right from model space somewhere. And now that entire line, or both of those lines that were crossing over one another are now turned into one line. The endpoints are still located in the same position they were before. Effectively, all this is doing is it's eliminating any overlap. Okay. Now the join command is also useful if you have two line segments that are drawn. Let's say I'll turn ortho on here. I'm going to draw one here, and then I'm going to move over a little bit and draw another line segment like this. If there's a gap in between the two, let's say I'm going to open this up. Okay, move that gap over. There we go. So I got two lines here now. Actually, I have a third one. I'm going to delete that. If I have two line segments, but they're collinear, they share a line, they share a horizontal plane, or maybe they're vertical, or they're collinear in some fashion, I can do the same command. I can take both of these lines, select them with a crossing window, type in join, and now they are merged. So anywhere where there was a gap before, sorry about smacking the microphone there, anywhere where there was a gap, that gap's now gone, but the endpoints of the original lines are still in that same place. Now this is going to come in really handy for people in AutoCAD working in Homework Chapter 4, where you're starting to create the floor plan geometry, and there's going to be a little chase down below in the south wall where you're going to be creating a cutout area for a fireplace and the chimney and the fireplace flues and so on. The join command can quickly bring two line segments that may be touching or maybe have a gap or maybe overlapping bring those two together so now you have only one line there. So again, the textbook doesn't talk about the join command, but it's really beneficial. It's really, really nice. It's helpful. It's quick. It's easy. I would suggest using it wherever you can. Now, the catch is that the line segments need to be collinear to make it practical. It's not going to help you any other way, okay? So that's the first thing. So again, that all dovetails with this idea of trying to eliminate overlapping geometry wherever possible. Now, some assignments that I've been receiving, especially the architectural objects assignments, they have a lot of overlapping geometry. I've seen a lot of it. I've commented a little bit, as I said, but it's not a critical issue right now. We're getting into this a little bit more at a time. And now that you have pretty much passed that homework assignment, again, it's due tonight, but most of you have turned it in, and you get into chapter 4 of your homework where you're working on floor plans now, more serious drafting, if you will, in residential planning and design. Overlapping line work, overlapping geometry, as it may also be referred to, that is a big no-no. Do not do it. Don't get into the habit of thinking it's okay to just keep drawing line segments to try to meet certain expectations, like hooking up a line into a corner or something. You need to clean up your geometry so that it is the bare minimum amount of line work necessary to create the shape. Okay. All right, that's out of the way. So it's, as I said, it's pretty important to focus on this stuff, but not right away in the class. That's why I put this off until a little later on. You will see this more and more as you get moving forward, okay? Not a huge deal, really. It's not the end of the world if it's there, but you can always go back into an assignment and clean it up afterwards and make sure that it's out of the way, it's taken care of. There's a few other things. Today we covered a little bit of dimensioning work in the face-to-face class, and I don't think we need to add a whole lot of content there. Dimensioning after, dimension styles and textiles were created, dimensioning is very simple. So there's not a whole lot to say about that. That's pretty much in the past. But again, for those of you watching online, if you are either watching this now or, shortly thereafter, and you're just about to turn in that daily exercise, because for you guys online, it's due just before midnight. Please make sure that you are, following along with the video pretty well. The one thing to pay close attention to when you're working on these daily exercises is try to be a little bit more experimental if you can. So err on the side of trying something else. Just try one or two other attempts, and instead of the bare minimum, because I think, quite frankly, it's just better for you to spend just a couple of extra minutes in the file just to work on a few things. All right, so let's get moving forward then with a couple of elements here in Revit. Now again, if you are watching, you do have an option to, log in and say something, ask a question. I will occasionally, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to go back to the inbox and just refresh it and see if anyone has any questions. If not, that's totally fine. You can ask me questions during, anytime, and you can reach me anytime throughout the week. So let's see. Go ahead and refresh this page as well. I'll check my phone too. Okay. All right. Do have a couple things I got to get to after the live stream's over. Okay, cool. All right. So anyway, back to Revit for a moment. I'm going to minimize AutoCAD. So what I've been noticing in the use of Revit is everyone is doing, first of all, you guys are all doing a great job. I wanted to tell you that. It's not that it's amazing. I actually expect that you would do a great job, and you really are. You're coming through really, really well. As your group project work gets going and you're kind of past the first setup assignment, you'll notice that there's a kind of a speed issue going on here in your Revit group project. Your assignments might take you very little time to finish, but I'm going to still, pace them out week after week so we can have some good communication back and forth and so on. I'm going to open up this one right here. Now, again, this is from group 1, who, whether it's online or face-to-face class, it's the group 1 file. I want to open this up and show you a couple things moving forward into the next couple of assignments. What's interesting, let's take a look at level 1 floor plan right now, just the view itself, not the sheet. I'm going to zoom on in here. Now, a couple of things that we discussed back in the spring last fall is that there are going to be some of these elements like the wall here and these curtain walls and the doors and some other elements that some of the students negotiated and asked if they could be changed. Now, what I tried to do is I tried to limit the amount of exterior wall changes to this building, only because if you think about it, the building would be owned by an individual or a group, and to make changes to the exterior or the perimeter of the building would likely cause a lot of permitting to happen, and that permitting would be at the cost of the building owner. So to try to limit this a little bit was the goal, to try to keep everyone sort of focused on interior design and all of the structural elements and where walls were and doors were and so on. That was the main focus. But I will talk with you again, but I'm telling you right now that some of this exterior wall, some of the south wall right here, is probably okay to do some editing to. Not these walls right here, not this actual wall, this exterior brick on metal stud. No, that's not available to edit, because if you think about it, a real building would have been built with all kinds of structural members and components that would be intended, purpose built so that they're in exactly the right place so that the curtain walls can span the exact right distance and right height and so on. So that stuff's not really negotiable. What would be changeable is the information shown here. I'm going to zoom in on that. That would be a curtain wall and the door. So for example, if you say your group wanted to do a little bit of changing to the building itself, and let's take a look at this in 3D so you can see what I mean. If you zoom in on this curtain wall and you say, you know what, these curtain walls are great, but could I maybe fill this curtain wall in with the same type of wall here? For some of this, I would probably say okay. All right, I probably would be, all right, if you plan on using it for some real good reason, you want to change these walls, go ahead, that's up to you guys. But the actual wall itself, the structural wall that's now highlighted in blue and is now transparent, no, you can't cut away any more of this. You can't change any more. You can add a little to it, yes, but you can't take any out. So that's the first thing. Now, again, for anybody who's working on this right now, you're starting to think ahead. What kind of business activity is going to be in this building? It may make sense to you to make some sort of wall change here. But again, the only changes would be available right here where the curtain walls exist, not anywhere else. Just want to make that clear, okay? Let's go back to the level 1 floor plan. And as, of course, you get going, the main things you're going to take out, or the main things that are probably you will remove, right, are going to be these 3 partition walls right here. Those partition walls divide up the spaces into separate units, which say small businesses will use. So this could have been 3 or 4 units, 3 or 4 businesses operating in this building. But again, the project is now narrowed down to only 1 business operating in this building. So these walls are going to have to come out. That's the first thing to demo or demolish. And all you need to do is select them and click the delete key and they're gone, right? That's all you need to do. But notice that we've created a little bit of a gap right here. So this wall, this space back here is a utility room. It'd be a place for things like conduits, ducting, electrical panels, definitely security and safety systems and so on. Fire suppression systems, all of that equipment would be back here. So in theory, if I hit Control Z, I'd probably want to actually bring this wall back instead of deleting it. I would probably just want to move this grip or maybe go up to my split tool and then split the wall, maybe right about here. Just use that split tool and click modify, delete the lower portion, and then modify this wall with the trim and extend command, which is right here. So click and click, click modify. So this is the end result, right? Now I've got a video and other instructions in your assignment about this. I'm just letting you know that this and this wall, these 2 walls, effectively need to stay in place and cannot be changed or interrupted in any way, because that equipment that would be back in that utility room is a requirement for the building's operation. And if you break into it for any reason at all, the fire marshal's going to tell you no, you're going to red flag the work, and you'll have a very upset client. Okay. But anyway, other walls, like these other interior walls here where we've got this little display case out here where you might have a walk-by display case for passersby seeing it and being interested in what's going on inside the building. These interior walls, these 2 that I will highlight right here, those are open and available to change, delete, and do whatever, okay? So effectively, it's just the building perimeter you need to maintain and these interior walls. Other things in here. So let's get rid of these for a second. Other things in here like these pads, if you will, right? That's where the pads for the posts and holding up the roof, they need to stay in place. These are going to actually be columns, and we got to make sure that there's something holding up the roof above. We'll go back to that 3D view, and you can see that there's some room up here. These walls I've added up here way back at the beginning of this building design. This is where you might have HVAC, roof-mounted HVAC equipment. And so the columns inside the building have to hold up part of that roof because those elements have weight. Otherwise, the roof would collapse, and obviously that's bad. So they have to stay. And then the back doors here as well. These rear access doors, these doors are going to be for, say, service entrances or employees coming in and out of the building, things like that. Those doors have to stay in place just as they are. So they're not open and available for editing. But essentially, this is kind of the sum result of what will happen as soon as your group is ready to start demo and start design. Okay, so quick primer on that. So let's see, what else is there out there that I wanted to mention right now? I'm kind of walking through a lot of things pretty fast here. My coffee's already getting cold. So what I'd like to do is mention too, for everybody watching, you guys are doing a great job getting assignments in on time. That's awesome. There's very little late work coming in. That's really appreciated. It helps me out a lot, and it definitely helps you out a lot too. Just to reiterate the point, I think I may have mentioned this last week and in class as well, but if you do submit an assignment on time or before, you can always resubmit that assignment as long as it's a group project assignment or homework, and get an updated score. And I will do that. I'll give you that little advice, if you will, on my comments in Canvas. So I'll provide a video with feedback on what to correct, and I'll also give you that information as a reminder as well. Don't forget to do that though, because you could be missing out on some really valuable points, and especially for your homework, if there were some things in your homework, either drastic errors that need to be fixed that I comment on that are going to actually stop production later on in the homework, in the textbook, as you flip page to page. Yes, you do need to make those corrections. It's not something you could ignore and work over the top of, especially in Revit, because the Revit project is somewhat linear in fashion and can, be more difficult to work with later on. If you don't get geometry in the right place early in the homework, it's going to be a problem much later on. I would say the same is true with AutoCAD, maybe for a lesser extent, only because you're working with a residential design that's slightly smaller. And if some of the interior walls were not exactly in the right place, it's probably not going to be a showstopper. But with Revit, it can be a problem. So definitely review, watch those videos, get back to me with any additional questions or concerns you might have, make the corrections and resubmit them if you can. Now again, if the assignment's late, you still need to make the corrections, but the corrections are for your use only. They don't come back to me, and I won't regrade them. So yeah, that's all there is to that. It's a pretty simple process. Now, if you are still a little uncertain about that, that's cool. Send me a message. I'll be glad to help you out. No worries there. I was going to actually talk a little bit about a different kind of subject, and this is about. I know some of you may be getting very close to graduating. Some of you might be just starting out in the program. I do have a couple of comments I wanted to mention in terms of creating your work that you're doing in this class, the stuff that you see over there. I'm trying to get used to this now, so I got to point this direction to point to the screen. The work that you're creating in terms of getting it prepared for printing and publishing, either online or on paper, for the use of having an effective job interview. And I know this is we're probably jumping way ahead for some of you, but many of you are probably already thinking about this to some extent. How do I present the work for a job interview, and what are these job interview people? What are these supervisors and owners of businesses? What are they looking for in terms of a portfolio? And it's been my experience that, quite frankly, the best thing that you can do is the comments that have already been given to you, probably by other instructors, and I'll say it too, and that is, do not leave out your progress work, okay? So if you're drafting something in AutoCAD and you're creating it from scratch, Never ever be in the mindset or take the mindset that all you want to do is show the finished work. Because frankly, most employers, in my experience, and I've actually, I've been the employee and I've been the hiring person as well. Most people in that interview want to see some measure of how you worked out certain problems. They don't necessarily look at the finished product and make assumptions and say, you've done obviously a great job. This is very buildable. It's a great design, awesome, great work, and so on, and give you a lot of congratulations right there. A lot of the time in a job interview, they're actually looking for and they may even talk to you about this. How did you resolve this conflict in a design? Or how long did it take you to do this design? Or did you have any trouble with some of the elements of the software that other people may have problems with? And they're trying to get you to be honest with them, of course, but they also want to see it visually. So what my suggestion would be, okay, is that actually a couple of things. For everybody in this class, that obviously you watching and everyone else, and I'll say this in the classroom as well, probably on Monday, I'm going to say it this way. Don't ever allow your files to get lost. Because if you save an earlier version of a file that has really hardly anything done to it, and maybe the next one has a lot of work, but it's rough, it's bulky, it doesn't have any dimensions, things are in the wrong place, and so on. If you save that work, you can then use that work later on in that interview to convince the person that you're talking with, or the people that you're talking with, that you actually had to start from a earlier design, a rough design, something that made absolutely no sense at all. You couldn't figure it out, but you resolved it, and here's how. And you can prove it. You can show it to them, okay? But most of the time, the final finished product, that final rendering that looks gorgeous, it's a perfect perspective rendering. It's got all kinds of entourage in it and trees and foliage and mountains and blue sky and everything. That's a very nice looking image, but oftentimes that's the last thing. Well, most of the time it's the last thing that you will create. And so for most of the work you'll be doing in a professional office is everything before it. So if your potential employer candidate, that person who's interviewing you or the people interviewing you, if they can see the way that you resolved problems and they see progress in your work over the weeks or over the days or hours, whatever it took, then they know, hey, I have a candidate who's sitting in front of me who is not only smart enough, brave enough, but honest enough to show me their work in a rougher, earlier version. And then the final version shows all the resolution to it. And there's an evolution of your design that's visible to them. And that is a vastly more important element to bring with you than just the finished product, okay? I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it, okay? Most of the time, remember that employers only hire people because they really, really need somebody. Most of the time, they want to have everybody who's currently in the organization do all the work, even if they have to take on a lot more work. The only reason they're hiring somebody is they just can't anymore. They have to have someone else to come in. And that means you need to be able to sit down right away at that workstation in your cubicle, whatever, and start making money for them. And the only way they can trust that you can do that is if they can see that you have gone through that meat grinder, if you will, if you've actually taken those logical steps forward in your design to show the progress along the way. There's a lot of ways to say this, everybody, but that's a huge, huge factor in your success. Not just in this class. This is an academic environment. But professionally, you'll see this every single day. I guarantee it, okay? Sometimes you'll be sending things to other people to review the work in a partially finished form, only because at that point, it's the only way that you can move forward as a designer. You have to get some feedback from somebody else before you can guarantee that you've made progress. I just did this yesterday. And I have a client I'm working for, and the client had a bunch of red lines and a bunch of changes they were making to a house out in Wenatchee. And suddenly I'm getting some feedback back that they want the roof changed again. So they had a roof created a certain way, and that roof was changed back to I wouldn't say an earlier version, but back again more and more. So the idea is change is always going to happen, and the only way your client, your employer, or anyone else is going to be able to think about this work you're doing as being a reliable and on-time work is that if you handle it, if you can get through it, okay, not just look at the finished product and say, I'm not sure how I can get there, but I know I can. That's not enough. That's not enough reassurance for them. Okay, so that's part of the, and I'll go on and on about this in the classroom if we have time, but I'm going to take this platform right now to tell you that's how this stuff really works. And for most people who are currently working either in this industry, have worked in the industry before, or something related, you've seen this before. You've already been through this. I've been through it. In my past, I've been through, industrial design and industrial manufacturing when we're building really, really big pieces of equipment, small equipment, anything in between. When you run into a problem and you need someone to assist you, you need a design change. The way that this works best is the person has to directly and quickly communicate what needs to change as soon as possible, and then the design change can occur smoothly. And in my case, it was my employer who would be the designer and I would be the technician. Then the situation flipped where I was the designer working with all the CAD software, and I would have people from the shop or manufacturers reps or customers telling me they needed things changed. I would make the change order happen, write it all down, send them a confirmation email, and then get going on the design change, and then send it out for review, and then again, get feedback from everybody. Is this buildable? Are we going to do it this way? So you have to have that confidence somewhere. So I'm kind of going on and on here, but there is a huge value in retaining your early versions of work, okay? And that's why the word save as is used with the software. So you're not overwriting the file every single time. You've always got an earlier version available to you to go back to, not just because there might be an emergency and the file crashed or something's wrong with it, but also because you are retaining that earlier knowledge. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is, relevant right now. We're in week 4, right? Maybe week 8, I'll talk about this a little bit more. And it's fall quarter, and a lot of you have a lot of time left in your college careers before your degree happens and before the portfolio show. But please know also that in the portfolio show, they will be asking for your progress work, okay? Never, ever let it out of your sight. Keep it with you. And for everyone in Draft 3 who might be watching this too, again, look, that inspiration notebook that you are putting together, that's part of this. That's a big part of this, right? It's a way that you can prove to somebody that you did the dirty work and it took you time and you had to spend resources. But as a result of doing that, as a result of spending your time and resources, your design's better than someone else's. And that is what's going to get you either the second job interview or the job. What keeps the job, what you have to do to keep the job, is to continuously do this. But then, of course, you're getting paid, and it's a little more comfortable when you're getting paid to do it, right? Okay. Okay, so let's see. What else can we talk about today? I've had some questions. Let's just check the messages one more time here. It's off the screen for you guys, but it's on the screen for me, of course. I've had some questions in class about various AutoCAD and various Revit things. Remember that, how should I best put this? Remember that the two applications, although they're produced by the same publisher, are radically different in how they arrive at the same conclusion, right? And you guys know this. So everybody all of you on the online side of the universe that are watching this, remember that you may not have seen it yet, okay? But if you're in the face-to-face class, you've heard me talk about Revit a lot, and vice versa with AutoCAD, so it's a little bit more straightforward for you guys. But for anyone who's in the online classes, yeah, you may not have had exposure to Revit yet. It's more advanced, obviously. It's modeling application versus a drafting application and so on. By the way, I did want to take a couple of moments just to let you know, kind of a couple of quick updates about me. And it's not going to affect you guys at all, but I will be creating here in the next, I would say probably next 2 weeks or so, I'm going to start creating some content for a continuing education class that I'll be teaching in winter quarter 2020. It's not a credit class for the college, but it is something extra, and that's going to be at night. I'm going to try to do this Mondays and Wednesdays. It's a couple hours. I think it's really exciting because these are engineers. They're coming in from all over the world. Effectively, they're going to be, on campus between 6 and 8 p.m., and I'm going to be there and they're teaching them how to use AutoCAD, the latest versions, how to use Revit, and so on. It's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I do have to create some content, and I will be pulling some of the content from these classes that you guys are involved in. So I will be doing that. It's not going to interrupt teaching in winter. I'm still going to be doing that. The format is going to stay the same in winter quarter. So it's going to be a hybrid combination class where we have AutoCAD, we have Revit, and we have the residential design class using Revit. So that's draft 1, draft 2, and draft 3, right? So those will all be in the same room again in the winter quarter. Same days of the week, Mondays and Wednesdays, and I will also be teaching online in winter quarter as well. So the schedule that I received as an advanced message basically is just a carbon copy of what we're doing right now. So all of the work that we're doing here in this class will transpose over to the other one as well. So for those of you who are considering, especially if you are currently in the AutoCAD class, whether you're face-to-face or online, please consider when it becomes available to you to register for the Revit class as soon as possible, because the face-to-face class does fill up relatively quickly, especially because we don't have a lot of time between the end of the fall quarter and the beginning of winter. We have the winter break for a couple of weeks there, but the registration times kind of get condensed a little bit. So my suggestion, again, this is kind of a shameless plug, is to get in the door as early as possible. Make sure you're registered and you get a spot if you want to be in the face-to-face class. Now, if you're online and you're thinking about continuing this online and learning Revit as well, it's super beneficial. And again, I sound like an advertisement on TV a little bit, but you will definitely take advantage of this, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. Revit is a much different animal than AutoCAD, and it's much more powerful, but it is also very relevant. The percentage of users, I would say the percentage of architects, designers, engineers, and so on that use AutoCAD is still greater than that of Revit, because AutoCAD is just much more of a legacy application. It's been around a long, long time, but Revit is growing. So consider, registering as soon as possible, okay? Yeah, cooling off a lot. So after the brief monologue there about registering for class, there really isn't a whole lot more I wanted to talk about in terms of expressing certain things. Again, I just wanted to say to everybody, you guys are doing a great job. The quality of work that I'm seeing across the board is really, really good. Okay, it's very good. And you're getting things in on time, which is outstanding. Keep doing that. Keep working with early urgency. If you do have any concerns at all, just, again, don't hesitate. Remember that it's more important to be as complete as possible with your assignment when you submit it, but try to submit it on time or before, so you have that second chance available. Because we're here to learn. We're not here to be perfect. That's not a great way to learn, is to hold yourself to a standard that high. The best way is just to jump in and be aggressive and explore and see what happens. And I'm always here to assist you where you need extra help, and to point out areas that need some improvement and so on, and give you all kinds of congratulations and so on when you guys do a great job. And some of you are just breezing through this. Others need a little more help, and that's what I expect. It's working out really well. So I want to thank you guys for doing such a great job. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, again, I will be doing these live streams every Wednesday night, again, from 7 to 8 p.m. If you have not already, click the subscribe button, okay? And that just means that you will have that available to you wherever you are, whenever you are, and so on. I think I'll do another Monday morning update video as an announcement next Monday, and we'll kind of get into a little bit more of the floor plan side of things for the AutoCAD class, and then also we will take a look at what's upcoming in homework specifically for Revit as well. So we'll kind of steer more towards the homework stuff. Now, if you are an online student and you've contacted everybody in your group, but maybe the overall level of communication isn't quite what you were going to expect and so on, definitely let me know right away. Now, I won't intervene in terms of assigning a different level of points to people in your group. I don't do that. This is a group project. So if one or two people are doing all the work, but the third person is hardly doing anything at all, right now I don't know that. So it's really hard for me to assign points differently from anybody. I never will do that. It's up to you guys to maintain that level of communication and calibrate your group dynamic so that everybody is working equitably, evenly, and continuously helping each other out. Okay, so that's really important. I had a chance in the classroom, and I always will, to talk to everybody face to face about this, but especially for you guys online, I don't always get the most chances to talk to you about this way. So again, please make sure tonight, before you end your day, make sure that you get that first group project assignment in. Also check the page, that that page that says either draft 1, group project, or draft 2, and make sure you write me that document. Okay, that's kind of mini contract, if you will, that states basically give the names of your group members, how you're going to process the project, and give me a quick summary of how you will handle conflicts in your group. So, and make sure that everybody in your group sees it, okay? I want everybody to be a part of this. So, again, it's a little easier to do in face-to-face classes, right? Because we're all in the same room together. But in the online universe, that's much harder to do. We do have technology we can leverage, but that technology sometimes fails us, okay? So don't let that happen. If you do need to get something in a little bit late, I get it. You just won't have a chance to resubmit the assignment if there are a few errors here and there. So I think that's just going to about wrap it up for today's live stream. What are we looking at? We're looking at about 7:45 now. So I've gone on and on enough. I have not received any questions. I can, I guess, take that as a good sign that you guys are on top of it and there's nothing you needed some assistance with, which is okay by me too. That means things are working out well. If you want to, again, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you're watching either now or later. That's great. I will talk to you again soon, either in class on Monday or another video on Monday for online students saying what's up for the coming week. Okay, have a nice weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.